Episode number 28. You have done a great deal for your country, sir, I said, feeling respect now, instead of pity. Not a mite more than I ought, ma'am. I'd go myself, if I was any use. As I ain't, I give my boys, and give 'em free dot. He spoke so cheerfully, looked so sincere, and seemed so glad to give his all, that I was ashamed of myself. I'd given one man, and thought it too much, while he gave four without grudging them. I had all my girls to comfort me at home, and his last son was waiting, miles away, to say goodbye to him, perhaps. I felt so rich, so happy thinking of my blessings, that I made him a nice bundle, gave him some money, and thanked him heartily for the lesson he had taught me. Tell another story, mother, one with a moral to it, like this. I like to think about them afterward, if they're real, and not too preachy, said Joe, after a minute's silence. Mrs. March smiled, and began at once, for she had told stories to this little audience for many years, and knew how to please them. Once upon a time, there were four girls, who had enough to eat, and drink and wear, a good many comforts, and pleasures, kind friends, and parents who loved them dearly, and yet they were not contented. Here the listeners stole sly looks at one another, and began to sew diligently. These girls were anxious to be good, and made many excellent resolutions, but they did not keep them very well, and were constantly saying, if only we had this, or if we could only do that, quite forgetting how much they already had, and how many things they actually could do. So they asked an old woman what spell they could use to make them happy, and she said, when you feel discontented, think over your blessings, and be grateful. Here Joe looked up quickly, as if about to speak, but changed her mind, seeing that the story was not done yet. Being sensible girls, they decided to try her advice, and soon were surprised to see how well off they were. One discovered that money couldn't keep shame and sorrow out of rich people's houses, another that, though she was poor, she was a great deal happier, with her youth, health, and good spirits, than a certain fretful, feeble old lady, who couldn't enjoy her comforts. A third that, disagreeable as it was to help get dinner, it was harder still to go begging for it, and the fourth, that even cornelian rings were not so valuable as good behavior. So they agreed to stop complaining, to enjoy the blessings already possessed, and tried to deserve them, lest they should be taken away entirely, instead of increased, and I believe they were never disappointed, or sorry that they took the old woman's advice. Now, Marmee, that is very cunning of you to turn our own stories against us, and give us a sermon, instead of a romance, cried Meg. I like that kind of sermon. It's the sort father used to tell us, said Beth thoughtfully, putting the needles straight on Joe's cushion. I don't complain near as much as the others do, and I shall be more careful than ever now, for I've had warning from Susie's downfall, said Amy morally. We needed that lesson, and we won't forget it. If we do so, you just say to us, as old Chloe did in Uncle Tom, "Tink ob your marses, chillun. Tink ob your marses," added Joe, who could not, for the life of her, help getting a morsel of fun out of the little sermon, though she took it to heart as much as any of them.